Hello, everybody. We're still waiting for attendees to come in the room. People are sort of filing in at the very last minute as we all operate our lives on the margin. And so please be patient. We'll get started shortly. Unfortunately, we don't have any soothing background music for you all to listen to, but we everything seems to be in technical good order, and we're just allowing people to come in the room.
That's an idea. Maybe we should look into that to see how we can get some music going. Really good elevator music.
We might give it another minute for people to come in. Still have people joining as we speak. Attendees are still coming in. I maybe hold off just another bit to make introductions, allow people to join. All right, I think Natasha, what do you think? We maybe start getting started and let people just come in as they join.
Yeah, that's a
All
good
right.
idea. You can start doing the poll questions, and that takes up a little bit of time too, just to get people in the room and acclimated. Do a few poll questions, and then
Okay, we're going to conduct a little poll for those of you in the audience. And can you see the poll questions, Natasha?
yes, I can.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know how to answer.
Those of you in the audience, if you don't mind answering a few questions so that we can track your personal data and your life histories. But this helps. This should help foster some good discussion during this seminar. Okay, so while people are sitting there, I'm just going to briefly introduce myself. My name is Jim Thompson, and I'm with a company called Waste Business Journal, and I'm very excited to be a part of SWEEP, the Solid Waste Environmental Excellence Performance Standard, which seeks to save the planet Earth by encouraging sustainable materials management and recycling, encourage recycling and other practices that lead to a more sustainable existence. It's basically a performance standard started by Rob Watson, our great leader. It sounds like a religious cult when I say that, but Rob was the founder of LEAD, Leadership by Design, performance standard for building and construction and demolition, recycling, leading to a whole new, leading to a certification program for building new buildings that are more energy efficient, that use more recycled materials, and a whole number of other objectives, and it's been very successful. Rob then wanted to turn his energies to the whole waste and recycling industry to help both businesses and governments have a roadmap to more sustainable materials management. And in doing that, put together a number of industry experts throughout the whole industry to serve on various boards and to create a standard that will help us achieve these goals. Rob loves to quote Drucker, who famously said, you can't manage what you don't measure. And Rob's corollary to that is, you can't measure what you haven't defined. And what SWEEP really is mission is to both create, that standard of measurement, but also define what those things are to measure. Today, I'm very excited to introduce Heather Billings, who's at the Center for EcoTechnology. Heather's a true zero advisor and has a degree in mechanical engineering and an MBA in sustainability. That makes her a very formidable force. She has 30 years of experience in the waste and recycling field. And as a senior reduction consultant for the center, she makes practical diversion recommendations to businesses and institutions. She specializes in assisting with reducing, donating, and diverting wasted food, which, as many of you know, is a very hot topic right now in the whole waste industry, especially here in California, where the state has mandated that communities provide food waste recycling programs to all their constituents. And as many observe, as goes California, so goes the nation, and that it's likely to lead to very aggressive food waste programs nationwide. Also pleased to introduce Natasha Dyer. She is our executive director here at SWEEP. She's a true zero waste advisor and has a degree in business management and an MBA in urban sustainability. After spending the last decade working in organics waste diversion from landfill as part of a state municipal level climate action plans via a solid waste environmental consultancy, she's worked for clients, including a waste hauler and the city mayor's office, now serves as executive director of SWEEP. And we are very fortunate to have her, leading this very complex endeavor. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Heather, who's going to present us with some of her observations.
Great, thank you. So do we close the poll? Just kind of technical question. Just wondering about that.
Okay, I am going to end the poll right now. And I'm going to share the results with everybody. And okay, I'll let you sort of briefly read through them here with you. To question one, have you participated in a restaurant reusable takeout container program? Few of you, about 20% of you said yes. A lot of us no. Which of the following is a component of deconstruction? Choose all that apply. Well, pre-demo clean out, soft strip of fixtures, cabinets, partial salvage of materials, full salvage. It seems like a lot of you have participated in this, at least to some degree. And a lot of feel that the mission of SWEEP is important, and that's good. And a number of you are not sure about whether you will consider a SWEEP certification, and we hope to tip that balance. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and turn that over to Heather now.
Okay, let's see if I. Okay, so yes, I'm going to start sharing if all the stars are aligned.
Mm-hmm.
And I see there's 29 folks participating today, and it would be great if there was, if you were able to kind of introduce yourselves in the chat. I'm just curious about where you're from, what your kind of affiliation is. That just always interests me about who comes to webinars. And I like to keep it casual as much as possible and, kind of have a discussion. That's why I was curious about the kind of the, have you tried a reusable restaurant takeout container, yourselves? Like, how do we think about having that in our municipalities? The first step is to try it. So anyway, I will get started. Thank you so much to Sweep for inviting us to present at this webinar. And I'll be sharing some resources and information about our wasted food solutions work, as well as a pilot program for reusables in Middletown, Connecticut, and also some deconstruction information. So the Center for EcoTechnology is where I've been working for the last almost 12 years, and we're an environmental nonprofit based in Western Massachusetts. Been around for over 40 years, helping businesses and people save energy and reduce waste. So we work with a variety of funders and partnerships to make this happen. And pictured here are some of the government agencies, utilities, and foundations we work with to make the environmental change happen. And as a nonprofit, we seek funding through grants, fee-for-service contracts, and donations. So there's a lot of resources that I want to share with you today, and you'll have the slides and the links. And I think kind of the takeaway message is call us. We're happy to help have a conversation and see what we can do to help you out in, whatever your waste reduction goal or question might be. Since 2013, when we launched the Wasted Food Solutions program, we've been able to help reduce, recover, and divert wasted food from disposal, which positively impacts our communities, the environment, and our collective bottom lines. And we are not a solution provider itself. We are independent eyes for making observations and recommendations to get programs going, whether it's to start or expand them. But we are not a sales rep for any particular solution or service provider. And that is, it's really wonderful to be able to just be so independent. So this is what the Wasted Food Solutions website looks like. And there is kind of a toolbox on the center left with a lot of resources and best practices in there. We've got case studies with both video and written, guidance documents. There's recorded workshops. We can connect you with service providers on whether it's all sorts of different materials. And when we're doing our recommendations, we follow the EPA food recovery hierarchy. And even though source reduction is at the top, sometimes, or actually frequently, businesses that we're working with don't start there. They're calling us up, they're saying, we want to start a composting program. And we say, great, fabulous. So we'll go in and talk to them about setting up a program with all the components that I'll cover in a minute. And then once they start measuring, and you had those great quotes, start separating and measuring, they're like, wow, here's some items here that we used to be throwing in the trash that now we're going to compost that we could actually reduce. We don't need to buy this because we're making too much of XYZ, and we tend to be throwing half of it away every day. So they could reduce the volume of surplus, or they could use it in another meal. And then they also could think, okay, well, here's some items that we could donate. So our assistance moves up and down and all around the hierarchy as the businesses and institutions we're working with need it to. We talk about it as meeting people where they are. And our services primarily fall in these categories: technical assistance, content development, and capacity building. So we work with the businesses across the hierarchy, providing the matchmaking services with solution providers such as food rescue organizations and haulers servicing recycling or organics or construction demolition. We offer training tools such as signage to reduce contamination and support long-lasting success. And then with these conversations and the businesses and solution providers in mind, we create success stories, we identify and address barriers, we create guidance documents and comprehensive training guides to inspire others. And then we share them. We share these stories by partnering with organizations such as associations to speak more broadly about the opportunities and the highlights. And we seek out places where businesses are already gathering with their peers, like today, or partner with trusted organizations. So our free technical assistance looks like this. If we don't have a funder, we are able to do it for a fee for service. But we work in the states on the lower right-hand side at this time with funding. And so our first step is to set up a site visit for a waste reduction assessment. And then we develop a customized recommendation report, identifying opportunities to prevent, recover, or otherwise divert food scraps from landfill or incineration. And then based on whatever measures a solution a business would like to implement, we then work with them to ensure a successful rollout. And we can assist with everything from implementing source separation in a kitchen to staff training, signage, reviewing quotes from haulers, working with on-site systems. So there's really a wide variety of things we can use. It's sort of like a menu, and a business may or may not need all of them. They might, but we're there to assist. Part of that is this customizable waste bin signage. So here's an example of one of our food scrap signs. And we like to use photo images of items that the specific kitchen, school cafeteria, corporate cafeteria might have in front of them. And so we have these for recycling as well as other products. And we really try to make it like the person has the thing in their hand. They're really trying to be quick, and have it split second about, oh, here's the thing. I recognize the thing that I have in my hand, and here's the appropriate container that I'm going to put it in. So we have the yeses, we have the nos, and then we can do translations in a wide variety of languages, and we have a service that we can use for interpretation and also additional languages if we don't already have the request for them, because we want to make sure that our waste systems are fully accessible to all users. One of our newest guides is the business case for donating and preventing wasted food. And reducing wasted food can result in both avoiding purchasing costs and also disposal costs. Donating the surplus food feeds the food insecure, but also provides tax benefits. And so as part of our technical assistance, we can help the business conduct a cost impact analysis to determine how their food waste diversion can save them money. So avoided disposal, reduced hauls can be put towards another program cost. I wanted to make sure to include this link today as a municipal audience. So this 85-page document was developed by Harvard Food Law and Policy Clinic with input from CET. And it is a comprehensive guide to everything you want to know about designing a ban and a mandatory organics recycling law. So again, you'll have this link. And as we think about what makes a successful policy, there's all these puzzle pieces that go into that, and you really can't miss one. So this covers the who, what, when, where, and why. And CET's component is on the right there, that education and technical assistance. So then looking at reusable containers, the takeout containers, again, that can be covered through CET's assistance for technical assistance, and we can provide tips on implementing programs and success stories. For example, Grainmaker in Massachusetts, a fast casual restaurant with locations in Boston and Somerville, developed a zero waste project at the Somerville location to cut back on their single-use to-go containers. And their program offers repeat customers the opportunity to receive orders in a reusable glass takeout container that they purchase for a one-time $10 charge. And in the first month, Grainmaker sold nearly 200 reusable containers. And over the course of a year, the program saved approximately $800 and prevented 2,100 pounds of single-use packaging. So the way it works is you buy the container, then you get a 5% discount off the items, off the food that you purchase. So after 20 times, you've paid for your container, and then you continue to get the 5% discount. And you bring the glass bottom in, and it has kind of that snap-on plastic top. You keep the top, and you just exchange the bottom, and they give you a new one. And in Middletown, Connecticut, we are working on a pilot program now, which is funded through an EPA Healthy Communities grant. And the city of Middletown applied for this grant, and there's an opportunity annually for other municipalities, nonprofits, cities, et cetera, to apply for these grants. I believe there's 15 chosen each year. And oh, I gave up my second screen, but I think the deadline is in May. So this is a pilot program. And so we've got all kinds of opportunity to look into the economics and the implementation and what are the challenges and barriers and successes, and learn all about it for a 6-month pilot. So there's 3 restaurants that are participating, and they have chosen the app Useful. So they have the cup and bowl that are pictured in the lower right. And a user pulls up the Useful app on their phone, and they so that's the entry point in how to use it. And then they can go to 3 participating restaurants, and they can get certain items that fit in those containers. And it's kind of like a library loan. So it's free to the customer, and they don't have a charge unless they don't return it in the time allotted. So they have a period of time decided mutually by the restaurant, city, and vendor of how many days it would be before they return this. And then the containers are returned and washed at the restaurant. And so we are currently doing interviews with the restaurants kind of each month to see how it's going. And all of that will be incorporated into the final report. And what else? Okay. Oh, they have a web page. The city has a web page and YouTube videos of how to participate in the program, which is awesome. And they also have this guidance document for restaurants about how to participate in the program. And so it, again, a great resource for how to wash, sanitize, make sure the containers are fully dry before they stack, and other tips for success. So this is available on the website that really anybody can look at. And then right off the presses, hot off the presses, CET is also contracted with the Mass DEP to provide the Recycling Works in Massachusetts program, which is technical assistance for businesses and institutions for waste reduction, donation, diversion, complying with the Massachusetts waste bans. And one of our projects this year is to work on a best management practices guidance for using reusables. So our process will be to gather a diverse group of stakeholders, including health officials, government officials, restaurant owners, service providers, people who have experience, people who have interest, ones who have concerns, people who are enthusiastic. You just gather them all. And we're going to have stakeholder meetings so they can offer their input. And then we will kind of revise what we know, where the barriers are, what we don't know, and continue on for almost a year-long process until we have a great consensus-based document, or guidance on a website, which can be updated as needed, and it should be ready next spring. So stay tuned. We'll be able to send that over to you if you're interested. And then for deconstruction, we wanted to cover that as well. So historically, the way for taking down a building is to do demolition. And demolition, it just involves tearing down the structure, putting the contents in dumpsters, and hauling it away. And when taken to a processing facility, some of the material can be recovered, but some just cannot. And the legacy of the items inside the building and structure elements are lost. But deconstruction is the unbuilding of the building in the way it was built, so the contents can be salvaged. The materials can be used on site or recycled. So many reasons why to deconstruct. First, saving money on disposal costs and reaping the tax incentives for donation. The contractors have received positive recognition on social media for their work doing this building salvage. And then the environmental benefit for capturing these materials for someone else to use instead of them having to purchase something new. It conserves resources, and deconstruction offers a huge benefit for reducing carbon footprint in a renovation. And deconstruction creates jobs, and reuse stores offer discounted building materials in their community. So the answer to the poll question, it was a trick question. It was all of the above are components of deconstruction. So not all, oh, I lost my little tagline here. So deconstruction doesn't have to be the whole thing. In fact, usually it's not. So it can range from the just a pre-demo clean out of easy to remove items. And then it goes to soft stripping. So appliances, lighting, things that can kind of be taken out with a screwdriver. Architectural items. Then the partial deconstruction, taking out the high value items. And whether that's doors and trim, flooring, windows, bricks, that whatever the is deemed to be valuable. Then there's a full deconstruction, or adaptive reuse by just taking that shell and using it again. Oh. The greenest building is the one that already exists. So there are some barriers to deconstruction. People are concerned right away about the time and the cost. But with some planning, it really can work. So the architect and the building owner really need to start the process about a year out to set deconstruction and construction demolition recycling goals into the bid specs. So if oftentimes we find people think of deconstruction when it might be too late or a general contractor has already been selected. So it's really important to write the goals into the specs. We've also learned that there's a lot more outlets for residential building materials than there are for commercial materials, but they're still there. Another recommendation is to close the loop on using deconstructed materials. So not just taking them out of one building and putting them in a place where someone might use them, but actually building and designing in specs of reclaimed materials into a future project. So setting out enough time, space, and budget just to make it go smoothly is really a key to success. We have some digital documents relating to deconstruction and a lot more topics. And we can also offer the free assistance to help architects, project managers, and general contractors get into deconstruction. So this Connecticut specific document summarizes everything in this part of the presentation in a very concise way, so it's easy to share with contractors or anyone interested in learning about the topic. Also, this document shares 12 United States municipalities that have deconstruction efforts and policies, and summarizes the important considerations when shaping how a municipality will promote deconstruction. So some of these examples are designing local historic districts. One states that buildings built in 1929 or earlier must be deconstructed. There's others that may have a demolition delay or may require projects to submit a just deconstruction plan. And then some municipalities require recycling and diversion rates based on a building's size. So deconstruction typically happens early on in the project. There's usually a need for deconstruction and demolition materials recycling afterwards, which is typically called C&D. So some materials in the mixed C&D dumpsters are challenging for processors to handle and separate, and they may be better candidates for collecting separately on the job site or source separation. And by doing some source separation, you may be able to increase the overall recycling rate of the project. And construction projects are typically cyclical. So you may not need a cardboard only dumpster until the end of the project when the finished items are delivered. And additionally, some haulers may offer live loading of material. So the truck comes and it's loaded and it leaves and doesn't have a dumpster on site if there's space constraints. In addition, some haulers and processors have said that they will offer a discounted rate for recycling materials such as cardboard, gypsum wallboard, metal, and clean if they are separated and brought in separately. Waste management planning is really the keystone for successful diversion of materials from a project, whether they are for donation or recycling. And this chart, and we have sample copies of this as well, and again, communicate the who, what, when, where, and how of materials management. What are you going to do with your brick? Where are you going to store it on site? How are you going to transport it? Who's the hauler? How much do we think we're going to have? Just so everybody's aware of what the expectations are, how to handle and process the materials, and then who to ask questions to if they have them. There are many outlets in the Northeast that accept building materials, and some in Connecticut are highlighted on this slide. Maybe there's some building outlets in the audience today, not sure. In addition, CET operates the largest reclaimed and surplus building material store in New England called Eco Building Bargains in Springfield. It will pick up in a 200-mile radius. It also has an online presence for items that can be shipped. And if you have building materials, cabinets, doors, windows, appliances, interesting furniture, lamps, hardware, give one of these outlets a call. They may be able to pick it up for you, might get a tax write-off. It's just a great way to keep items out of the landfill. So for a success story here, we'll mention the Elias Brookings School. So this was an abandoned school building in Springfield that was just literally walked away from after a tornado hit. So it had all of these supplies, like the pencils were just put down on the desk as the students left and they never came back. So this was going to be adaptively reused into apartments. Each classroom turned into an apartment, and the developer rescued 10 tons of reusable items from the school before the demo even began. A great example of a pre-demolition clean out. And then Recycling Works connected them to local reuse outlets to donate cabinets, dry erase boards, interior doors, metal chairs, books, school supplies, and more. And the project was showcased in the news, and the developer received very positive brand recognition for the project. And even though the labor was a bit higher here, the developer saved on the disposal costs. So here's my contact information, and love to answer questions later on and have you get hold of me.
That's wonderful, Heather. We do have some. Well, I am going to encourage people to ask questions in the attendees in the Q&A, and then I'm happy to introduce now Natasha, who's going to talk about SWEEP and its mission.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Heather. That was really amazing thing that you guys are working on. You guys are tackling some good things and finding some good success stories on, and especially the reusable containers. That's things dreams are made of for some of us who are real fed up with single-use, quick-use plastics that often aren't recyclable at all. I just had a quick question. Is that that EPA grant that helped you roll some of that out, is that more of just one region was offering grants for that, or was it the entire EPA had some grants? So like, was it region specific that was trying to roll out grants for that? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. While you're presenting, I will look that up. This one was specifically a Region 1 Healthy Communities grant, but I'm just guessing if it calls out Region 1 that they're going to be available in other regions too. But cool. I don't know that answer, so I'll check.
Worries. Yeah, we don't always know. Okay, and I'll just go ahead and get started. Let me get my screen together. Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm Natasha Dyer with SWEEP, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you more about SWEEP, and then also tell you how SWEEP through our rating system, how we give points and for people as they go through source reduction and reuse programs that they're creating for their own programming. Okay, so just some background. At SWEEP, we have a vision of a world without waste, where all of society's discards are viewed as commodities to be continuously cycled back to their highest and best use, as Jim was telling us earlier. And so our work then focuses on the solid waste industry, and with the goal of helping it to transform into a business model that is centered around not landfilling resources, right? But instead is focusing on managing resources for circularity. And as Jim also told you earlier, our founder is Rob Watson, who created LEAD, which is in about 170 countries, and has really been successful over the last 25 years. But how he came into the solid waste area is that when he was, excuse me, sorry. So let me just say this. So just as it was when Rob was creating LEED to measure efficiency in building energy and water usage, he saw similar irregularities in the waste industry. And as Jim mentioned already, that it was like he was seeing that there was no real standard for measuring what people were measuring and even how they were defining it. There were no universal definitions for those materials being diverted. And so according to the US Census, there's about 89,000 local governments and special districts in the United States. And in those 89,000 districts, you'll find like 1,000 different types of recycling programs and systems. And in those 1,000 programs, and why there are even 1,000 programs, is because there's no standardization in the way the industry defines the materials flowing through the systems. And so just some good examples, like you can take a look at a waste characterization study and you'll see a certain type of plastic being singled out and called one thing on one study. And then you'll see it being clumped into like a group of plastics on another, and as a category of itself, and how they're measuring what's being diverted. And so there isn't a clear picture of what's being diverted or even what volume is being diverted if you're not actually defining things in the same way, right? Another good example, what we all know to be green waste or organic waste. On one study, you'll see it being called green waste, and that really just signifies what yard trimming is being collected in a city. But then sometimes cities mean green waste, and they mean the yard trimmings and the food waste that's commingled with that collection, right? So again, there's no real congruency in the definition of terms. Currently, everyone makes up their own rules and definitions and declares victory, showing great levels of diversion using very different criteria from one city or from one region to the next. So at SWEEP, As mentioned, we're just trying to clearly help this industry define different material categories so that we can all compare progress in cities nationwide, right? And then recycling programs can then gauge exactly what they are, and then highlight a path forward so that we can become more circular. And so here is a snapshot of the ecosystem that Sweep operates in. And this is an ideal system view, right? So let's say an organization takes the time to certify that their facilities and buildings are pushing out great recyclable materials, everything's compostable, and they've become true zero waste certified on that micro level. Sweep then is certifying what's going on at a macro level. We're expanding our view to the ecosystem that is the materials management industry. And so once those buildings roll the recyclables out to the curb, and then once they've gotten on that truck, are the valuable resources headed to a MRF for further separation and circularity. So like organics headed to, a composting facility, or the C&D materials that we saw earlier, those headed to new markets and reuse stores, like CET highlight just now. Or is everything instead headed to a landfill where they will lose their next level of worth and value? So Sweep is that third-party verification system that incentivizes local governments and their solid waste handlers to verify that their operation is circular and environmentally sound. And because this is the model of analysis we're looking at as we look at zoom into the waste ecosystem, or the materials ecosystem, the only parties eligible to participate in Sweep certification are local governments and those material management handlers themselves. So the haulers, the MRFs, the transfer stations, the commodities processors of those organics and those C&D materials. And then membership with Sweep is then extended to nonprofits and consultants, waste brokers, even though those same local governments and materials management handlers can be a member as well, because members are very important to Sweep. So basically, as mentioned earlier, what we consider the standard has been developed by hundreds of great subject matter experts weighing in all across the material management industry, some with decades of experience and donating thousands of hours to basically create this framework or this standard by which we are now going to be measuring this industry to make sure that it becomes more circular and more sustainable. And so that then is housed in the certification manual that includes step-by-step information on how to certify, in-depth case studies, step-by-step purpose and intent, and then everything is how you certify is then uploaded to this Retrack Connect portal that is utilized both by so many different other, the municipal management program is another program that's trying to gauge what's in people's waste streams. But before we get to that, we should also just kind of take a step back and determine what the standard is measuring. And so certification of Sweep is based on measuring an eligible participant, and again, that's our local governments or our materials handlers, against 5 performance categories. And certifying entities are given credit for each category based on specific measurable and verifiable actions. And I'll give you a little overview of each category in a bit and how it pertains to the presentation we just had on reuse and prevention, so that it can correlate, so that you can see how the categories go with a program like that, programming like that. But for now, let me just tell you how it all adds up. And it's basically 100 points throughout these different performance categories. And then there's also room left for innovation. So if there's something that we haven't thought of a way to do sustainable materials management at its best, and you've come up with some new novel or clever solution, feel free to submit it, and then you get an extra 10 points for innovation to total a possible 110 points. And it adds up. It's very similar to LEED, how it scores. And so you can be certified at just the certified level. There's platinum, gold, and silver. And eventually Sweep looks to have just a plain pass fail certification in the future. And so this is how it all stacks up against this reuse programming. Basically, let's see, out of the total 100 points, and this is just for programming, and that'll make sense in a minute, but you can get a potential of up to 60 points just by, reuse and prevention, because that's most important, right? That's how the hierarchy is anyway. We're supposed to be doing more things to prevent waste at source, and also to reuse, right? Recycling is supposed to be that last part of the hierarchy. And so for sustainable materials management, that is actually the policy. What mandates a local government, like what mandates are they creating to make sure resources start skipping the landfill? Again, easy ones we like to talk about are like, are they banning food waste from landfills? Even that 40% that we all know goes into a landfill that's edible, are they starting to create more programming or laws that are saying, hey, we've got to rescue that food and give it to our food insecure residents? What are some ways that governments are trying to make sure resources skip the landfill? And also that deconstructed buildings are being diverted in such a way that or those resources are being diverted in such a way that it's creating more jobs, right? It's hitting markets, and it's actually becoming job creators if you start to look at these materials as resources. So let's see, and then the next category is waste generation prevention. This category basically gives points for successfully reducing waste generation on the front end again, and that's all we were talking about today is reuse and prevention. And so you get points for educating your constituency about waste reduction. Are you supporting things like repair programs or fix-it cafes, tool libraries, so that neighbors can get together and share things, and everyone doesn't have to buy a lawnmower, like you actually figuring out ways to help communities work better together so that they are reducing their waste at the source. There's even points for creating programs that rescue and redistribute edible food, like mentioned, and points for waste prevention and food rescue through supermarket due date discount programs. So our next category is solid waste collection. And though this category doesn't apply directly to programming of what was discussed today, of course, it is part of the system since it looks at the transportation in your operation. So this is where you earn points by doing things like reducing your greenhouse gas emissions that are generated from your collection vehicles by improving their fuel economy. And this can be done by optimizing collection routes. I think that's when you make sure rights are made, not left, right? And then are you swapping out fossil fuel vehicles for ones that have been electrified when that becomes more affordable, or if they're run on natural gases? And so the next category is post-collection recovery. And of course, this goes there. And in general, this category focuses on landfill diversion of all recyclable materials through all kinds of different recovery methods. So of course, our topic applies today. And then the final category by which entities are measured up to see how they would certify with SWEEP is post-collection disposal. And this category in general measures how effectively you're how effectively you're disposing of materials that have no higher value. But it's important to note that there's no points given to disposal, but rather for best management practices. The credits that you get points for this category. And so this is something where like landfill gas being captured and then turned into a renewable energy to power like municipal buildings or city fleets would get points because you're capturing something and giving it that's actually just in disposal, that's been created with disposal, and you're giving it new life. And so we like to share some of the credits all the time. I know we don't go through these, but like we like to offer you to go onto our website and download the standard. And then you can actually have and then we will email you this PowerPoint as well. You can kind of take an overview of where something like reuse and prevention gets points within SWEEP. And so I mentioned the policy and of course, waste generation and prevention and post-recovery, post-collection recovery. Okay, and I even shared some case studies, like UC Cities here, Los Angeles has a C&D law that's been on the books that requires 50% of all debris generated from construction to actually be recovered and recycled and reused. I think that's pretty cool. And then there's that Digital Fair Repair Act, and that's out of New York, where the governor there has made a law that gives consumers the right to repair, right? A lot of manufacturers hold on to their manuals and kind of ways to interact with their merchandise as some kind of proprietary document. So then you've always got to go to their I guess registered fixers or people that actually work on their products instead of allowing a mom and pops to actually know how to fix something down the street. And let's see, and I also added, let's see, I also added some work done out of the city of Atlanta. This is actually some work that I was involved in, where we actually got a grant with the Natural Resources Defense Council to determine what kind of food was in our landfill. And then we did a whole MARTA campaign that actually was a prevention tactic to get out to about 1 million people, 1 million riders, to let them know how to reduce and prevent food waste to begin with. Also put some inserts in the water utility bill that got out to about 96,000 residents. Probably reporting in this. And so this is a listing of our dozen or so sweep pilots participants, spanning local government and industry. And in fact, the first 4 or so will be completing the pilot process very soon. And then with the public standard based on that pilot experience coming out soon after that to be reviewed by you all industry community members. So we're getting there, we're moving along. Sweep's going to have a few certifications before the end of the year. And let's see, some benefits of being certified. Has been shown that municipalities that go through the process realize 25% more diversion, thus saving those communities on landfill tipping fees. That's money that they don't now have to spend to tip resources into the ground. Also because Sweep is measuring performance against the standard. And as a third-party verifier, once you go through the certification process, you're sending a message to your constituents that you're a leader in sustainability. And this is something many more residents are noting that's important to them. And getting a third-party verification, like we have no skin in the game, aids against any corporate greenwashing that happens a lot, where you're patting your back and saying, "Hey, I'm this green," but instead, when it's verified by a three-party, it gives a clearer view to your impact. And young people are becoming very concerned with linking themselves to sustainable and climate efficient business models and bottom lines. And so if you're looking to get into a pool of younger talent and a younger workforce where people are concerned about this, you are starting to align yourself with what younger people are looking for, and that's corporations that are walking the talk. So quick recap, some ways to get involved. Again, there's the sweep certification for local government or industry provider. And there's also joining as a member through a very nominal fee, where you can join and then sit on our committees who meet up to continue shaping the standard and continue to keep creating that roadmap to take this industry to one that becomes more of a sustainable materials management and circular, and creates an end to landfills, right? So these are some of our members. This here and been members for a while. And just a quick few more benefits of being a member. If you become a member, you get to present on a webinar today, like CET did, and tell us something great that you're doing, that you're very proud of, a program or initiative. We're looking forward to rolling out our professional accreditation soon, which would be the equivalent to the lead green associate or the true zero waste advisor. And we would give you 10% off of that once we get that going, if you want those credentials or those letters behind your name. Yeah. And so thanks for hanging around, and thanks for joining us. Just if you have any questions, please send email to info@sweepstandard.org. And just want to let you know that our next webinar is October 26th, where we will have the National Steward Action Council, and their work centers around bringing more extended producer responsibility laws to our states. And as you know, EPR is the whole goal of shifting the burden of waste management at the end of product life cycles back to the manufacturer and off of local governments and our consumer funds to manage products that we weren't responsible for making that waste. So yeah, that's it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I might jump in and just start some questions, and I invite the audience to pipe up too. Heather, I'm curious. You've talked about the signage programs in various restaurants, school cafeterias, institutional cafeterias. Do you have, I guess data must reflect that pretty significant changes in food disposal patterns when you do that?
Well, yes. That's one of the ways that we can help a business if they have a program, whether it's recycling or food waste, and it's contaminated. But if the signage is unclear, then that leaves it up to the user to decide what the standards and specifications would be. So, and that's true for, for recycling as well. So having imaging of, what can be included, what can't, and kind of making it as specific as possible really does help. Is it, are people going to see like a fiber bowl that looks like it would be compostable, but it's actually not BPI certified compostable, and it would cause a problem if it went into the food scrap stream? Like, those kinds of things really need to be spelled out as clearly as possible for the user, so that the program works well for the hauler and then goes through the end site without contamination charges or rejected loads or having it end up in the trash.
Interesting. Yeah, the other thing you were talking about that really caught my eye was the deconstruction of that old school, and other projects I think you guys are spearheading around the country. What you talked about a number of benefits, including some reduced costs. Can you talk more about that? Like, is there a total? I mean, there are some. I would assume there's some cost increases by taking something apart more meticulously than just bulldozing it down. But is there sort of a net cost difference, and how do those vary from project to project?
Kind of the disclaimer I was going to say.
Oh,
It's going to vary.
Yeah.
So that is it's definitely a fear. And, I have a project happening in my town right now where I want to make sure that deconstruction and salvage is built into the bid when they're looking to potentially demolish an old historic building. And I don't want it. Okay. So, but the concern that we're hearing from the public is, oh, that's going to, double or triple the cost. Well, not necessarily. So I think if materials are kind of easy to remove, let's say, like, the cabinets, you don't have to take the sledgehammer to the cabinets. You don't have to, crunch it up with the excavator. You can pull that off the wall, and like, it really does have a good value. People are looking for these things. They're looking to purchase nice cabinet sets at a reduced cost. And that's just like their entry point to get into it. So there is a demand for these items. So then there is a value, and, let's say they weren't able to donate. Well, maybe they can sell. So there's other ways to recoup value. Let's say like architectural, like structural beams or architectural components. Again, like, they may have value that would offset other costs on the project, like the labor. And yes, there is additional labor. We don't have a good figure of, like, per square foot, so I'm not sure how to get that level of detail, but I think it's worth investigating.
Yeah. So we have one. I don't know if I'm one of our attendees is asking, what can an individual do on a local level to further some of these initiatives and help local government knowing about these proposed systems? And I guess that applies to both you, Heather, and Natasha.
Natasha, you go ahead first.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was going to say, I just like to say, show up to your government and let them know that you want these things done. You should also try to look out for other organizations that are in the community that already work on these types of issues, and kind of coalesce and create a coalition, and then you show up as a front to your elected officials. I like to say the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? And before I even worked in government, I was one of those people that joined coalitions, and we would show up to commissions all the time and tell them we wanted more composting, we wanted better recycling, and I'd like to say, where t-shirt too. So demolition, and you get more done if you actually just tell them what you want. Yeah.
And I think I love all that you said, but also to bring them some resources. This is not just putting this work and research onto their plate, but here's some of the examples that we shared of like, here's what other communities similar in size to us have done. They're successful. That's why we love the success stories, so that people can find inspiration and some relatability to what other communities have done. And pilot programs are awesome as well. You're giving it a try, and there's a lot of learning that happens. And then you sort of reboot and start it over again. So I would definitely encourage people to start that conversation. So I'm an elected official in my town, so that's kind of how I'm involved in that discussion. But there's a lot of elected and appointed boards that are doing work in these areas, and so maybe even to like you said, try to figure out like who's doing this work, and bring it to one of those kind of sub meetings, and then get all your homework done and kind of present it in a larger way, and see if those like demolition delay bylaws can get passed, or that there's a lot of great opportunity.
That's fantastic. That leads to another question from an attendee. Is there an online platform or community of practice where we can find best practices or successful interventions to share and learn from others? And I don't know if the two of you have an answer to that. I would have to put on my thinking cap a little bit, because there's a lot of resources out there, and my inclination would be to first look at your local community government website, but EPA has a lot of resources too. I don't know, I'll turn it over to you two if you think have anything to add to that.
I've also really enjoyed subscribing to listservs, and they're the ones I've seen are kind of topic related, like college and university, and so they're bringing up brainstorming of all sorts of topics, but they're all related to college and university. So there may be a similar listserv for some of these topics that I'm just not subscribed to yet.
Yeah, and I put some information for an organization called Post Landfill Action Network in the chat. That is basically just a network of schools that is doing work on zero waste initiatives. They remind me kind of like a sweep for school or something, because they're actually going about making sure their campuses are zero waste and trying to push for different legislation, things like that.
That's fantastic. Natasha, we are now past noon.
Oh, we definitely
and I suppose we're going to have to sort of wrap up,
yeah,
and let people go get their lunch, or that's here in California, but do your afternoon nap maybe on the East Coast.
Yeah, well, thank them for joining us. Yeah, we'd like to thank you for joining us and coming to listen to our chat today. I learned so much from you, Heather. It's all very interesting information. I love learning more about deconstruction, but learning about reusable containers as a program and a funded program, that's just, like I said earlier, that's stuff dreams are made of, that we always wonder when that's going to happen. So I'm going to be following that closely, and looking for more grants, I guess, nationwide to support solutions like that.
Yeah, I didn't see an immediate answer to is it available nationwide, but I think a phone call to EPA, and I can help figure that out.
Well, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate you joining in.
Here.
Please feel free to reach out to us with follow-up questions. We will be sharing the slides from today with all of you. Anything else, Natasha?
No, I think you all have a great holiday. It's going to be the holidays this weekend, so enjoy yourselves.
Yeah, happy Labor Day, everyone.
Happy Labor Day.
Bye.